Let's call the meeting to order at 6:30. And welcome everybody to our Board of Selectmen's meeting, a regular meeting of February 22nd. 22222. Just for fun.
Yep. Yep. This is Tuesday.
Yeah, there you go, and it's on a
Yeah,
Tuesday.
yeah.
All right, the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the regular meeting held on February 8th, 2022.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on February 8th, 2022.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I just remembered, I should have done this first, but that's okay. We kind of forgot the holiday. We wanted to add Parks and Recreation to the agenda, or they asked to be on the agenda to talk about some things. A really good idea that we'd like to talk about. So if we, rather than try to fit them in on audience of the citizens, if somebody could add them to the agenda, it'd be great.
I'll make a motion to add the Park and Rec for a presentation.
I second.
I don't know. After 6? I don't
Yeah,
know.
that sounds good.
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, audience of citizens. We have a nice crowd. Anybody here with anything to say?
I wanted to put in, I don't know how formal I'd have to be, but just to express my interest in the Mislick property that's left for sale, the lot on the Mislick Drive.
Oh, yeah, good.
Top notch.
Yep.
You guys all know I've spent the last few years up there cleaning up everything I've done and developed everything in the commercial area. I brought 3 businesses to town. I expanded the footprint of the industrial park. Cleaned up, I think, a substantial mess on one property and done everything I can for my building, and I'd like to continue that on back there. I know the town's owned it. It hasn't really, it's been, I maybe discussed, not in a meeting, that it is for sale. There was an asking price for it. It never got published, but I would like to pay the asking price and move on.
If there was an asking price from many years ago.
Yeah, whatever the other 3 lots sold
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, no, we're gonna,
Right.
the process, once you get done, I'll tell you.
Yeah, right. So whatever that was, I don't know if we're gonna try to scale it now or not. I don't know, whatever you guys wanna do. But I would like to make a formal inquiry on it. I don't think you've had one. Brought to the Board of Selectmen, and, what I'd like to do.
Well, thanks. It's good to know that you're interested still. We have had a number of inquiries over the past few years on that property. Our intent is to, just like we did at the time that it was put for sale last time, which was when the other ones were put for sale, our assessor will get us a market value of the place, and we'll go from that, asking for bids or proposals or whatever the process was last time. We'll go through again.
Yeah, there was a little history there. I ended up putting the road in and putting the power in and tearing down all the buildings for Dick. And there was a company, Winthrop Tool, that was supposed to purchase it and ended up backing out of the order. And I always kind of mentioned to Dick at that time, that was before I bought the property behind my building, that I would be interested in buying it. And 3 weeks later, Mr. Smith passed away. So if we were to talk about a line of order there, I've, had inquiries since day 1 on the whole property, and I've continued to kind of poke, and I've talked to Jane about it, and heard this and heard that, and I don't know how formal it's been, but I'd like to make tonight formal, so.
It hasn't been formal, but your request is certainly noted.
Appreciate it.
The property was under contract with Colomar.
Went to Winthrop Tool,
No.
and then Freddie.
No. The property that is still there, that's for sale,
Right.
was under contract with Colomar on the corner of the property.
Yeah,
Colomar pulled out, and there has been no other contract on that property.
Yeah,
So Colomar pulled out of that 3 years ago, I think. So,
no more than that.
time flies.
Yeah. Yep.
We lost 2.
Yeah. So, anyway, but thank you. It's good to
Yeah.
know that you're interested. I know that there are others that are interested. I think we're just gonna have to put a public notification out for folks to go through the same process that we went through, when Dick did this. So that would have been 7 years ago, so.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Anyone else? Mike,
Update on speed tables and solar,
that's on the agenda, number 5, so.
I didn't get it,
Oh,
so.
DOT, okay.
Does that go out on the internet, the agenda? Because I don't get the agenda either.
If
Yeah.
it does,
Is that on the
it's
email list or
it's-
something like that?
posted on our website,
Okay,
and you
posted.
can subscribe to news. If you check off Board of Selectmen minutes or agendas, you'll get those.
Okay, it's good to know.
That's a good advertisement for people to subscribe to news and to get on the website and sign up, because all of our updates go out on that. The most important, of course, is if there's an emergency, we can send out notifications and things like that, but also for fun things that are happening, or just good information, we can send out information. The more people sign up, the more people get that and can spread the word. So if you haven't signed up yet, please do. Anyone else? Okay. Next item on the agenda is appointments. The Sustainable Connecticut Committee, Anita Grace D. Carlin has been attending and has been recommended by the committee to be appointed. So.
I'll make a motion to put Anita Grace Dang Carlin on the Sustainable Connecticut Committee, CT Committee, sorry.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mike, number 5, DOT update. That's probably a little too vague. But let's see, there's some good news and some bad news. The good news is not as good as we would hope, but we were able to connect and had a conversation with the DOT, the fellow who's been managing Deep River over the past 6 months or so. He called mostly in connection to the Route 80 rumble strips and the project that took place up on Route 80. He got his interest in that was based on some of my conversations, some of, I'm sure, Fred's calls to the state, but also the town meeting or the public hearing that the DOT had a few months ago regarding the Route 145 project. Most of the conversation on that call was focused, most of the public conversation was focused on Route 80. So as a result of that, they sent their crews back out there, did what, according to him, did an extensive review of where the rumble strips are located, and found two places where they were going to, in his words, address the situation. Both of those, I think, were a result of Mr. Jordan's pointing out of the fact that the yellow lines were not, that the rumble strips were not centered on the yellow painted lines.
Okay.
According to the state DOT, the rumble strips are in the center of the road, but the painting company missed them. So they're going to remove the paint and put the paint back on the rumble strips.
Again.
Yes.
They won't fix a thing.
It won't stop people from hitting the rumble strips, that's for sure.
And the road in front of my house is only 11.5 feet wide. Their regulation states gotta be, I think, a minimum of 15 or 15.5 feet from the center line to the edge of the usable pavement. It's certainly not in many areas of that road. I measured the whole thing while the road was closed.
Well, I can't speak to what their regulations say. I have been told, since I've been in this seat and they were working on Main Street, that they are reducing the width of travelways to 11 feet in order to try and slow traffic down. I know that's the case on Main Street because I was watching them do that. And Fred, I'm happy to talk with you either online or more here, or offline or more here about some of your distinct issues, and I can try to relay them to him, or we can get you on a call with him directly.
I'd be happy to do that.
So I'm just trying to relay the information that he gave to me. They were adamant, and they are adamant, and the state is, at least the DOT, continues to pull back to statistics about the fact that rumble strips keep people in their lane, and that saves lives. And that's what their goal is with this.
So what's their, if you don't mind me, what's their recommendation for 145?
145, they're going to continue with what they've got. He said, and that is something that I'm working on further. I asked him for another public meeting, and he indicated that the response at the public meeting was all focused on Route 80, so he didn't express a whole lot of interest in 145. I'm asking for another one, and I'm going to go to the legislatures to try and push for that, because his response to me was there was no need for one.
Fred,
So we're going to try and get another one.
Fred, have you talked to this gentleman yourself, one-on-one?
Oh, no, I was not able to, because that whole format they used for that public hearing is so clumsy that,
No,
number one, you were not able to do it.
No, I understand that. I didn't know if, because you know the name of the people or whatever, if you had reached out directly via telephone or
No, I
something.
didn't know the name of the people.
Well, in the meeting, I figured they'd say who the people were. I don't.
Yeah, the meeting it was on the agenda, but around notice.
Right.
But it's okay. We can
Oh, yeah,
hook up
yeah.
and do
Part of the
that.
problem with that whole format was.
The
that
format was very clumsy.
Not only was the format bad, but also so was the notification. I mean, they advertised it in the New Haven Register. Now, I don't know if anybody in this room can subscribe to the New Haven Register. The print newspaper, for the most part, is not really even used by many. And
Right.
certainly not the New Haven Register that has zero coverage. As the Hartford Current has zero news coverage of town news anymore.
I know it. It's unbelievable. They don't even cover Hartford anymore.
I mean, we used to get pretty good coverage from the Hartford Current, and then that all went
Yeah.
away.
Yep.
So now people have no real means of seeing it, and even the Valley Courier carries nothing of Deep River Town meetings or things that go on in the town.
We did in fact publish that at least once. I think we put it out there twice on our website and on our notifications, but not everybody sees that.
Everybody gets the Valley Courier,
Yeah.
but yet there's nothing to speak of Deep River News in there.
So, we'll continue to try to arrange for that meeting. He very clearly was not intending to have one. I think there should be another one because the format was so clumsy, more than anything. You really couldn't. I was trying to participate and had to go through YouTube and then text a message. It was to a phone number. It was really weird. It was very cumbersome, and it was not a good representation. Now,
Part was you had somebody paraphrasing your message to you.
yes, that too, yeah. So that's 145, that's Rumble Strip news. As I said, none of that, the only good part of that news was that they actually are speaking to us still, so. Regarding Main Street, we did, I think I told you guys, I told everybody 2 weeks or a month ago that we did apply for and were awarded a road safety audit by the DOT. We filled out all the documentation, they're reviewing that now. They expect that they will be in town for an audit on Main Street somewhere in the beginning of April. So we will certainly include a couple of stakeholders from Main Street, as well as myself and the state police, to participate in that conversation.
Do you know what this audit's gonna consist of?
But safety, and they're looking at how they can make Main Street safer.
Okay, I'm just,
We are pushing, Deep River, I say we, Deep River is pushing very hard for speed tables, at least 2.
You said at one point they were kind of receptive to that.
Well, the initial response for the past few years has been no.
Yeah, right.
The last conversation was that, we are doing that experimentally down in New Haven. And I volunteered Deep River to be their experiment on a state highway, where they didn't have to do 8 or 10, they could do 2, and we'd be very happy. And it would go hand in hand with what we are planning, which is speed tables on Union Street, to slow that down. It'd be nice to have them, the parallel roads to slow them. So we're not pushing people onto Main Street. We're trying, they're gonna have the same speed control on both roads. He didn't say no, as they had said before. So, and he suggested this audit, and more conversations can be right with you, Chris.
Good.
So that's where that is. And that's really the DOT update. Not a whole lot of significant progress, but communication, which is better than it has been for the last few months, so that's good. Chris, did you have a question?
Just about this, so you said you're doing that on Union Street. There was a rumor that you're gonna put a stop sign at Union in spring.
We're exploring that. The issue with a stop sign at that intersection is number one, the deceleration, but also the acceleration. And if you put a stop sign where it belongs there, it's going to put the stop bar right in front of the driveway for the house that's there. And I need to learn a little bit more about the safety aspect of that. But more importantly is the acceleration of the trucks and things. When they come to that stop, and then they have to start from a stop, the noise level of that is going to be something that I think is a little cumbersome. And my hope is that the speed tables will slow traffic to where that's not necessary.
I heard that issue that you mentioned was that the stop sign Chester put in by Chesterfields. They wanted to slow people in, they put a stop sign in, and then the motorcycles and all that, when they accelerated, made a lot of noise. That's what I heard, I don't know.
I don't know about
Yeah.
that specific, but when I've mentioned it to
Yeah.
other traffic control people, that's what they say. You want to be careful where you put them because people, if it's when they accelerate,
Yeah.
especially because there's big truck traffic there.
I do have a question on when they look at this stuff. I assume that due to that being their job, that they come during normal working hours. And I can assure you that certainly on my road, that the traffic characteristics are completely different when people are out of work, especially speed.
Yep.
And if they're not observing it during times when people are actually using the road and not at work.
No, that's a good
They're
point.
not seeing a realistic, getting a realistic picture of what's going on. Because I can tell you that there's a huge difference in the traffic, around quitting time and morning time.
Oh, yeah.
On my road.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And speed.
I'm sure that they're not observing it during normal working hours. We're observing it during state DOT working hours, which are a little bit different.
So if you need to confer with, we do have the DOT statistics of how many vehicles and what time of day.
Oh, yeah.
Trucks.
Well, we
So-
don't have them from current information. We have them from the last study that they did, which was 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
But,
I'm pretty
according
sure
to
that
Nick, I don't know my
Peak,
time.
peak traffic hours, so you may
Yeah.
want to steer them toward
Yeah.
when.
Oh, yeah, no, when they attend, absolutely, yeah. So that's the update. The other update that we have on the agenda is affordable housing review. I don't know how many folks were able to attend Thursday night's meeting at the Planning and Zoning where they introduced this. We spoke about the affordable housing a couple of weeks ago. There seemed to be some interest in that, so I thought we would give an update of that. This will be posted, all of this information will be posted on the town website, so folks can take a look at it. This particular meeting on Thursday was really just to review the population demographics, which were a little surprising, but not horribly surprising. To review the existing housing conditions, and to discuss current zoning regulations and how they might mesh the two. And Mike, you were there, so I know if I missed something or something, just pipe up as a representative of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The demographics were surprising to me anyway, in that we are an older community, a much older community than folks around us, and folks are not looking to move. At least for the next 5 years. The survey shows so that everybody that's in their house expects to stay in their house for another 5 years. They're not looking to go. But they do think that it's too expensive to live here if you did want to buy a place. There wasn't a conversation about taxes. It was a conversation of cost of housing. And they expressed in the survey that they thought it was too expensive to live in Deep River. All of which points to the need for some sort of affordable housing plan. And that's what we're going to try to formulate. Now, my thinking on this, and we'll discuss this as the months proceed. But my thinking on this is we're going to address it, but we're going to address it methodically and with a lot of thought. We're not going to just say, okay, change all of our planning. I don't have a whole lot of voice in our planning and zoning, but we're not, I hope anyway, that we don't just change our zones and allow for high rises and all that kind of thing. What we really can do and what we're suggesting that we do is maybe secondary apartments on properties and things like that. That's what this meeting kind of spoke to. And the fact that we're going to continue to meet over the next few months so that we can comply with the state requirements to have something in place by July 1 or June 1. I can't remember which that is. I think June 1. And that's that. Really not a whole heck of a lot. But as we progress, we're going to have monthly meetings, and as we progress, I'll keep you guys updated. And you guys too. And the next item on the agenda is item 6A, Parks and Recreation, to discuss a request for some ARPA funds and a great idea for our community. So if you guys want to come to the table, that'd be great.
Sure.
If you want to speak from there, that's okay too. So we have Chris.
No, you sit here.
I'll switch over. Oh, thanks.
Sorry. I was gonna walk around. Well, thanks for having us. I'm Carol Jones. I'm the Director of Park and Rec.
Hi, I'm Eliza Patterson, I'm a member.
Hi there.
Chris Merritt, member.
So what we're proposing to do is, and Chris, one of our members, who's also a chairperson of the Summer Concert Committee, and but one of his ideas that brought up, and all the commission members were in for it, is to very happy to entertain this, is to have a music fest in Deep River, and we envision it to be very, taking over the whole town, kind of like having different venues, bands at different places, like down at the river, maybe at the High Nine Brewery, the Red House, so utilize Main Street things, utilize Devitt Field, and the Rusty Rail or something. So, really spread people out so that they're in town, they're walking around Main Street, they're staying at the, our bed and breakfast and all that kind of stuff. It would be for the whole weekend, Friday through Sunday, and we were looking to sort of get some funding to make this happen. So I'll turn it over to Chris because he's been in the trenches kind of coming up with some planning of it. And
So I did make a little one sheet if you want to pass them around.
Excellent.
You guys can grab those and pass them down. As Carol said, eventually what we want to do is have the whole town involved. There's a lot of fluctuation about what we can be doing based on, obviously, budget, which is a huge piece, and then time, which is another piece. So as the date for this would be June, we're rapidly running down the clock here, so to speak. And our goal would be to try to just finalize some sort of foundation for it for this year, which may be limiting it to just one site, which would be Devitt, and then maybe perhaps a couple of little smaller things here and there afterwards. Our goal is to have 3 days, multiple acts, and then, you can see there's a little bit of a schedule there. Obviously, if you want to get down to the really exciting stuff, what we're asking for the town, we're hoping, and again, it sounds like a big number, but when you see where the money goes pretty quickly, we were hoping to get $25,000 a year over 4 years to fund this, which come from the is it ARPA? I always say it wrong.
ARPA.
Yeah, ARPA money. Production costs will eat up a lot of that, advertising, support services, and then talent costs. If we want to make a festival that's going to be pretty decent, we want to really bring in some pretty decent acts. Nothing huge, but things that would draw people in from the surrounding towns, things that would draw people in from around the state, in addition to all the local bands that we'd have to do this, all the regional bands, and maybe a couple of smaller bands from the country who would be traveling through, and we can get cheap. Then we would also look for sponsors, and we'd have vendors. Obviously, we would have food vendors. We would have, probably like we did with the last couple of carnivals, we'd have a beer vendor, which we may just get High Nine to do, and wine maybe. And then, of course, we could have crafts and everything else to obviously make it just more of multifaceted thing where you're coming for the music, but there's other things you can do. I think for the year one, if we get it going sooner than later, we could probably have a pretty decent year. And then probably for next year, you know, we were modeling this sort of after some other festivals that use the entire city, like an Austin City Limits or a Montauk Music Festival, where we would have a main stage in the center of town, and then all the other venues in town would be able to participate as well over the course of the day. I've seen these, I've been to them, and it does work, but I think to get it started, we'd want to have a little bit smaller scale and then eventually branch it out a little bit. That's our pitch.
Well, we thought, you know, that it would really speak to the ARPA funds. I mean, it would fall into that because it would help economic development, you know, bring people to town. It would just be a very positive thing. The whole cultural and arts aspect of that.
Absolutely.
Even as a sustainable Deep River Committee member, you know, it's all the stuff we're reading about, all these action items, you know, bring people to town and, you know, that sort of thing, like cultural programs and stuff, so.
No, I think it does fit into the ARPA.
Well, that's my main question,
yeah.
is does it, you know?
Yes, it
I
does.
don't know what the criteria are.
It does. I'll email that to you. The final judgment, or the final ruling came out a few weeks ago. I'll send that to you guys. It does, I believe that it does fall into that. It does have to fall into the whole thing. We've got to go from, it's got to be recommended from us to the Board of Finance, the Board of Finance to town meeting. So, you know, we've got a town meeting, we've got a schedule, so it could fall right into that. If we decide that it's something that we want to do. There's probably a whole bunch of questions. My first one is, will this become self-sustaining at one point, or will it be a continual contribution from the town?
Well, you know, it's funny, Carol and I were just talking about, one of the things that she put in the newsletter, which was that we were saying that passes for the event are TBD. In other words, we haven't announced it as a free concert yet, because we weren't sure what that would look like. Now, obviously, for year one, probably the best thing to do is get them hooked, have it free. Year two, if we drew, and this is just a hypothetical, if we drew weekend passes, let's say they were 2,000 weekend passes at $5 a piece. You know, that's something that could certainly go towards, you know, sustaining it further. As years go on, sponsors could become more competitive. In other words, rather than us begging people to be sponsors, people would start to say, this is something worth sponsoring because you're bringing a couple thousand people to the area. I want my business to be a part of that. And then hopefully it could grow in that sense where instead of us having to come to town for money forever, we could build it up. What I think is good about, and we had talked about this in you know, casual terms, allocating $25,000 for a year per year for 4 years, is that even if by year 3 we're actually grossing revenue, that just makes it bigger, so that everything can become bigger. You got better entertainment, you can charge a little more, the sponsorship levels become higher, and then it just pushes it onward and upward. So I think eventually over time that could be possible. It would just have to be done in a very calculating way where we grow it incrementally each year, bit by bit, still having a sponsorship by the town or funding from the town for those first few years to kind of get it off the ground.
How do you police who is there once you, it's maybe year 2? How do you, and it's $5 a person, how do you police in an open public town who is there and who is paid and who hasn't?
So obviously we could do something like wristbands, which would be hard to fake if we did them right.
Okay.
You could also have,
And there'd be personnel to look around to make sure they had them, obviously.
right, so each venue would be responsible for that.
Okay.
So in other words,
Alright.
we would be running our venue at debit. We would have each, so let's say High 9 is a venue, okay? I go to Kirsten at High 9 and I say, listen, here's the deal, you're gonna be part of this. This is what we're gonna do, we're gonna help you set up for, you know, the weekend. We're gonna get some entertainment in here, you can have a little bit of a say in that as well. Everybody's gonna have a wristband to come to your venue, and then you're gonna sell a ton of beer.
So the actual policing, I'll use policing, of each individual venue would be by the person hosting it.
Except for the town, which would be us at Debit Theater.
Right, but I'm just saying, you know,
Yes.
I know Park and Rec really needs people on the Park and Rec board.
No.
There's gonna need to be people.
Yeah, we might just get a nice base of volunteers, because this
Yeah.
is such a fun thing.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
we thought
Just-
about that too, how I
Yeah.
think something like this would make people wanna be on Park and Rec
Yeah,
because they wanna
yeah.
be a part of it. So, at least I hope, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is hopeful. Go
Two
ahead.
quick questions. I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
The only quick question I have is it says early evening. What is early evening
So
consist
I
of?
don't think we want to do anything much past dark. June is the longest part of the year.
Yep.
So we're about 3 or 4 days in front of the solstice, which I think means the sun will go down around 8:30, 9 o'clock. I would say music would probably stop at around 9. I think that'd be, anything past that would be too late. It gives people a chance to clear out. And even for year one, it would give a chance for some of these places to say, listen, you know, you're gonna stay open late, people are gonna want something to eat, people are gonna go out. And then we have a couple of those official after parties. I know we have some regulations about what we can and can't do in town, and maybe we could talk about ways to sunset those for the weekend, if it's possible. I don't know. I just don't.
Talk to planning and zoning and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my next question would be is, I know during the muster,
I was
you used Devitt's Field as a campground.
Yes.
Would you open it up as a campground?
I don't think
Don't
we have
think we
any
wanna do
plans.
that.
Okay, I'm just, you know,
No.
because I know they do them down in Bridgeport, that's a whole weekend.
Right,
fair
right, yeah,
at Seaside Park, and
Yeah.
they all come in droves down there, and that's what I was just thinking, you know?
Yeah, I think that's not.
Okay,
what
I'm
we're-
just,
And timing, you mentioned muster, the timing, potential date versus when the muster is. I don't know when the muster is.
muster, that's
July.
July.
It's in
That's
July, but I
July.
mean, 2
Month.
weeks, 3 weeks later, you know,
Right.
you don't wanna have them too close together, I wouldn't think.
No.
Right.
I think right now we were looking at like Father's Day weekend,
Okay.
which is like June 17th and
Yep,
18th.
okay.
Yeah, so we'd have about a month between.
Yeah,
The other thing to keep in mind about some of those festivals that you're talking about, where they do the camping and Bridgeport and everything, is knowing the types of music that those have, they're a little bit more of the camping, you know, jam band, hippie thing. This is not what we're going for here. And there's just there's anything wrong with that. It's just, we discussed this, there's a million of those. We want something that's a little more, for lack of a better word, mainstream, where people would come to see the music, good music, and then, you know, head home or whatever.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm assuming that we're talking about beyond local acts, but regional musicians, maybe some national musicians as we grow, I'm not sure, but.
Well, you'd be surprised at what you can get for
Yeah.
the money out there, especially post-COVID when people want to get out in front of
Yeah.
people again. I'm not saying that it's easy, but there are certainly, and again, this is why everything depends on budget, is what we can do.
I'm sure we could use David Crosby for next to nothing. But my serious question is, I don't see anything in here, and maybe it's part of the staging and production, all that kind of thing, but it comes part of your question about how to manage who's in, especially if we're charging, and especially at debit, but also for security and control. Are we gonna have a fence around the whole of the field?
Well, I don't think we need that if we're not charging for year one. So I don't know that would fall under a budget line item now. As we go forward, we can figure out what we want to do. I mean, snow fence is probably not enough.
Yeah.
But I don't think having Atlas fence come in and put in a temporary, you know, chain link fence is necessarily it either. I think that's something that we would talk about once we get to the point where we want to decide to charge, and we may never do that. I mean, it just depends. That being said, if we don't want to keep asking the town for money every year, we probably have to do something to offset those costs. So, you know, I think that's a year 2, year 3 kind of a thing we look at and figure out what's going on. But I think the initial thing is let's find some success with year 1,
yeah.
see how that goes, see what the crowd is. If it's 500 people, then maybe snow fence is enough. If it's 2,000 people, we're probably gonna need a bigger boat, and then that way we go towards something else.
Well, you know, as I said, there was a 2-part question. Number 1 was, how do you control who's going in and out for cost, but also controlling who's going in and out for security.
Right.
That's as big if not bigger concern for me is when we've got potentially a lot of people, a football field full of people, with no control over ingress and egress.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that we are gonna need to talk about, and maybe we talk about that with the police department before we bring this as far as town meeting. So we've got answers to this kind of thing.
Well, just police presence, period.
Police
I mean-
presence is,
I mean,
that's here.
Chester canceled the ice carnival because the reason that they had was the cost of the police and
Yeah.
whatnot to have it there.
Yeah.
They've reinstituted this past Sunday, and
Right.
they had a lot of people down there.
I'm sure they
They
did.
did,
Yeah.
they really did.
So we definitely do have police under support services and
That's under
everything.
support.
What I would say too is that being that we used to have the carnival there and didn't have there was no actual entrance or exit. People would come in. One of the biggest complaints we had about the carnival is that people would bring in outside food when we had food trucks there.
Yeah.
So it was a catch-22. Food trucks wouldn't come because they weren't selling anything. People would bring their food because we didn't have any food trucks, and we were always at loggerheads about how to handle it.
Right.
And part of the reason why was because there was no dedicated entrance. You just kind of filtered your way into the field, and then everything worked out. So I agree. I'd like to find a way to control that to a degree
Yeah.
where people feel safe, but also that there's not a difficulty with access and there's not a
Yeah.
line of people waiting into Main Street because you can't get into the venue.
Yeah.
So just some things we could, obviously work out and
Yeah,
find
and there are logistics we've got to figure out for
Yeah.
parking and things like that. And cost, I'm not sure, that cost, but let's get into the details. If and when we get past this meeting positively, and the next meeting positively, and before we get into the town meeting.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have a lot of that. My concern, one of my concerns though, is that 25 per annum, and I think we have to be as clear as we can from the beginning, both with you guys and with the community, that this is ARPA funds that really is only gonna last for 4 years, 3.5 years
Yeah.
at this point. It would be this would be the beginning of the 4th year, so. That said, we should have some sort of a plan, maybe not initially, but some sort of a plan a couple years in. What's gonna happen when this money runs out? Are we gonna come to the town and try to put this into our town budget of 25,000? And that's what we're finding with a lot of the ARPA requests or suggestions, is that we're funding something that at the end of those 4 years, when this money runs out, what are we gonna do? Are we
Cancel
gonna
programs,
keep
cancel.
those programs going? And that's a difficult, some things I wouldn't wanna start because I wouldn't wanna end,
At least this one seems like it has the potential to be
So this could be
self-sustaining.
great.
So the chances are hopeful that it would be self-sustaining, so you wouldn't have to come back for the money after 4 years.
I would hope it
Where
would.
other things that now, you hire an extra person or whatever because of the funds, and then when the funds run out, you have to find the money.
I'm sure that this is not gonna come out right, so I probably shouldn't say it, but these kind of things, when they're successful, are usually successful because they're operated by a private organization, not by a government organization. And that is, this is the opposite. So I'm a little bit afraid of that. I'm not afraid of your abilities at all.
I have no abilities.
You've got more than me when it comes to running the music fest. So, it's just a caution more than anything else that, if you want to make money, the government's not in the business of making money. The government's in the business of supplying these kind of things. So maybe we can try to find some private entities to help with this, maybe not to run it, maybe to run it. Maybe it becomes something else. If we're successful in 3 years, somebody comes in and says, hey, Jim Koplik comes in and says, hey, we can run
Take
that.
it and run with it.
So that's just thoughts. I'm totally in.
Yeah.
I like the
I think
idea.
it's a great idea.
I think we can do it. We just have a very short time frame to try to get this ready to put in front of the town, and there are gonna be a bunch of questions, because it's town money,
Another thing that really, this is New England, is you gotta either have a rain date or some other kind of weather consideration, because if we're gonna put a lot of money up,
Yeah,
and it's a washout, because you can't hold the event, that's a big problem.
well, if they don't hold the
I think it's a
event,
great idea.
how much of this is spent if we don't have the event? All of it, right?
Yeah, staging,
Most.
advertising,
Staging,
yeah, all that.
Yeah, you're not gonna get all that back.
you won't
Now,
get,
that said, depending on what you think for attendance, we could come up with a couple. I thought about this the other day. We have a couple of different options for backup. Obviously, upstairs might not be big enough,
yeah,
which would be a problem because you don't wanna have people outside not being able to get in.
right.
And then option number 2 is, and I don't know how difficult this would be, but you got a gym right across the street.
It would be difficult.
I assumed.
Yes,
Extraordinarily difficult.
Fred, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It is
I
New
think it's a
England.
great idea,
Mm.
but without having,
Well, yeah,
an alternative.
as part of the research, I'm sure that these festivals have this kind of contingency built in. That, you know, if it's not one day, it's the
Yeah.
next because of
You'd be
rain.
surprised at how
No?
many of them don't.
Yeah.
I don't know, I've never been to one, I
I've
don't
seen
know.
festivals completely washed out.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
So-
it's supposed to pour here very shortly, and all of
Yeah.
a sudden it pours, and
Yeah,
some diehards will stand there and put a garbage bag over themselves and just listen to the entertainers anyway.
The ones down in Bridgeport, they have a stage,
Yep,
yeah.
and those people are there
okay.
all weekend.
Well,
Well,
maybe
they
then
play.
you don't.
Like I said,
Maybe-
they're,
Maybe it's
you know,
rain or shine, it's on that date, and bring your umbrella or whatever, I don't know.
1969, I hitchhiked up to Woodstock,
I was
New York.
about ready to say, which,
And it rained all weekend,
Yep,
you know,
yep.
so, it's,
we
Well,
were
I
all
figured
young.
it.
Yeah.
something to think, it is something to think
My
about.
mom and
They-
dad wouldn't let
they-
me go.
There are not, it's a good question,
Yeah,
Frank,
that's a
mostly,
very good
not
question.
so much for what the people are gonna do, but it's an expenditure that we're not gonna get back
Not gonna
if it
get back.
rains.
Right.
So we do wanna have a solution for that, and maybe
Yeah.
it is different stages, or maybe it is the stage. Build a stage that's got it covered, you know?
You can
Yeah.
put a stage that has covered, but I'll
Yeah.
tell you, having played on one, when it does rain, it can still be really dicey depending on what the wind is like. So you just,
Here's
if
a-
there's, yeah, and you know, the one good thing I would say about the June date is that, and again, I'm gonna,
Chances
I don't wanna
Right.
jinx this, it will rain in June. It doesn't often rain 3 days in a row, torrential downpour all the time. Now, I watch it
Oh,
happen
yeah.
now because I said it.
Yep.
But I think that's one thing where if you were doing September or May, you
That'd be a
could get
different
3
story.
days of rain in a row, and then
Right.
it's hurricane season in
Yeah.
September, so it just makes it
Yeah.
worse.
I think it's a great idea.
Well, we'll talk about some backup suggestions and ideas, but.
Yeah, we should come up with
Yeah.
something. I mean, that could be one, and then we could have others.
Yeah, well, that's the question, is it going to be set up in a way that you could bring one of the acts here, one of the acts there, one of the acts there? Or should it all be at the same place?
Well, I
just
think it
like-
should all be the same place on year one, but I think if we have weather issues, we could have a.
No, and that's what I mean,
Yeah,
if we
we could
have
have a
weather-
plan B,
if we
yeah,
have
we could
weather,
make a
we
plan
break
B.
it up.
Yeah, and break it up a little bit, yeah, that could be doable.
So you mentioned the town meeting is scheduled, when is
The
that?
town meeting is not scheduled,
Oh,
we need to
okay.
schedule it, but we just can't get contracts done for the solar. We can't get, we can't get a contract set yet for the police, body cameras. So, and those are the two things that need the town meeting. So as soon as we get those contracts, we've gotta get that going.
What's the update with the solar?
Solar is that we sent the contract back. I just got their response to that. And we're negotiating. There are a couple of sticking points. But I'm still very hopeful that we're gonna get it done. They pretty much acquiesced to most everything. But there are a couple of points that.
Is it a contracting company or is it a specific company? You know, wasn't there like 3 or 4 companies?
We're dealing with a company called Verigy, is who the Board of Selectmen decided to go with. They had maybe, I'm not sure, I can't remember the numbers, but they might not have been the greatest number, but they've had the best response to what we needed to do. And just, as soon as we asked them for a contract, they got one back to us. We reviewed it, we commented on it, we sent them back a couple of pages of notes. They'd spent a week or 10 days in really trying to respond to that, and now we're
Making progress.
trying to get going. Yeah, so that's that.
Do we
I
have
guess
to
the
do it?
question
Yeah.
would be, if you guys are comfortable at this point, I am,
Mhm.
to recommend to the Board of Finance that they consider this and consider recommending to the community that we use $100,000 of the ARPA funds for this particular event, $25,000 per year, that would fall into the ARPA funds when it comes to the community economic development and community development.
Looking for a
And then-
motion?
I'm asking you guys if you're comfortable with
Yeah,
that, and if
I'm-
you are,
yeah,
then
I'm
let's make a
com-
motion,
I'm
yeah.
comfortable
Absolutely.
with it.
No.
And then, it'll be ultimately decision of the Board of Finance.
It's the Board of Finance will decide whether to move it forward based on our
To the town meeting.
recommendation.
Okay.
And it's up to the community as to
Yep.
whether or not they spend the money.
I'll-
So if you're comfortable with it, make a motion and let's.
I'll make a motion to move it to the Board of Finance to use $100,000 over a 4-year plan of the ARPA money for the music festival presented by the Park and Rec.
Okay.
I second that.
Any more discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Stick around.
Can I run next door and talk to Bud?
Whatever happened to Hot Rod Night?
Bud will be right here.
Oh, he's
He'll
coming
be
in?
here in 15 minutes.
Okay, great.
What,
Didn't Park and Rec use that Hot Rod Night down there?
We did, we had just, the person running it didn't wanna like let the public use the park when he was there. So we had a lot of
Really?
complaints.
what's hot rod night?
Remember they used to have Hot Rod Night down there?
Oh, the cruise night too.
Oh,
Oh, that,
That was a blast.
Yeah.
Just go down, get a hot dog, it was great.
Yep.
I tried to get in the middle of that and solve it. He was
So he didn't
difficult.
want people in the playground, that was the.
You don't want to share the space.
They didn't want to share the space for
Right.
2 hours that night.
No, so we
That's
had
a
some
shame.
people complain, yeah.
That was a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are nice.
It
They're a
really
lot
was.
of fun.
It was a good Tuesday thing to do, you know?
I like them for the, at carnivals. And there's going to be another one this summer, right?
There's gonna be a car show at the Historical Society,
The Family Day time.
the family day time-ish.
Yeah,
And, so that's gonna be going on at whatever that date is, Saturday.
September 17th.
Yeah, it's gonna be an orphan brand car show with other cars
Cool, yeah.
available also.
Yeah, I didn't mention it during the conversation, but I do get concerned about that field. If we're driving cars onto it and people are walking on it and it's a lot of rain, because it is still utilized as a ball field, not the football field as much, but the baseball field is right there. So we've had issues with that during the muster at times, and during the fair, carnival, that place got really creamed one summer. But,
Yeah, that real rainy day.
If we do it right, that baseball field should be pretty free and clear.
Okay.
There's anything but foot traffic. Anything but foot traffic. Everything else should be off to the side.
Yeah.
We're gonna need the buildings, power probably and everything, so we're gonna be off to that side where the end zone is, and, probably all the food trucks, everything will be off on that side as well, so we should be okay.
Okay. Well, I think you and I still are not in agreement as to where the stage should be, but
We're not.
you're the boss.
I think we were thinking
We-
the whole football field
yeah.
would be where
Yeah.
we try to contain
think
everything,
that-
except maybe crafters, if we have crafters or something on the A field, but,
Yeah.
We should let the Historical Society know what's going on too.
yeah, we just wanted
But
to see if it was gonna
Yeah, the
happen.
budding property, and I think some of the property that the football field, some of that, there's some ownership.
Well, I would
Historical Society.
imagine behind where the
Yeah.
campers used to be.
Yeah, it's Historical Society
Not the
property.
field proper, but where the
Right.
campsites were.
Yep.
And I think that, this is something that the people that live nearby,
Mhm.
Mike, you included, are going to hear this during the course of the day. And I like the idea of shutting it down at
That
dusk.
was my question.
It's a really good idea for safety reasons, but
Yeah.
also for community reasons.
Yeah.
There are people that live up near there.
Yeah.
So those are all thoughts that I expect will be addressed at the town
Town
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah.
Because you'll have to deal with that, and then a month later, deal with the
The
muster.
muster, yeah,
I think Munster closed down at what, 10 o'clock?
midnight,
Yeah, midnight.
Really?
yeah. 11:59,
They
59.
would love you if it was if it was 10 o'clock.
Oh,
Only because we do the timer on the lights, so we shut them off.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for the agenda. If anybody has anything else?
no.
Nope, okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good evening, everyone. This is the regular February 2022 meeting of the Deep River Board of Finance. The first item that I asked us to address tonight is the approval of the minutes from our, I believe it was January 24th meeting. And while we can chat about it if you wish, I would like to pay special tribute to Russ, who was willing to substitute as the secretary and become the pen behind those minutes. Would anyone like to offer that we approve those minutes?
I thought they were disasters. But I will make a motion to.
Well,
approve.
I do not think Russ said it was going to be a permanent, so anyhow, so.
I'll second those disastrous minutes.
So I shall take those, all those in favor of approval of, I thought they were extremely good, and since I partially contributed to them, so I'm going to think they were grand, and
Russ, I think there's always a spot here for you if your pen is ever full of ink.
I'll say aye.
Bill's gonna take those. You don't have a pen in your hand, you want a pen?
Just to practice.
I learned my lesson, Jim.
With that merriment done, Angus, we have a special guest. Shall we introduce our special guest and that conversation?
Would you prefer to do that as audience of citizens or recommendations from the selectmen? Because we did take a motion and vote on.
I'll tell you what, let's do it as a audience of citizens, but you can set it up as a recommendation, so we know where we're going, and we'll
That's
get
fine.
back to recommendations, Justin.
It's fine. We, the Board of Selectmen were graced with the attendance of Carol and Chris from the Parks and Recreation to request some funding for what we think was a fine idea for Deep River is a music festival to be held in June. But I'll let them speak to the details. Having listened to the details and asked quite a few questions of ourselves, we took a vote. We took a motion and a vote to recommend to the Board of Finance to bring to town meeting $25,000 annually taken from our ARPA, American Rescue Plan funds, for the next 4 years to begin the process of developing a music festival to be held around town, throughout town, but the first year at Devitt Field. We feel that it falls inside the parameters of the ARPA guidelines initially established for COVID recovery through economic development and social services. We've kind of expanded that into arts and keeping that as part of the social services and economic development portion of it. And we're here now to bring them to you so they can make their presentation. You can ask your questions and consider the same question. So I'd bring Chris and Carol right up to the board and hand out the paperwork that they handed out to us, which is just.
Well, thank you for having us. So we're both from Park and Rec. Chris has been working really hard to develop this music festival. We're hoping to be an annual thing. And like Angus mentioned, we really involve the whole town. So we bring people to town, and it would really be a great thing. So Chris, I'm going to turn over to Chris because he's been doing the nitty gritty of the details.
So, the most important thing to know is that the festival will be held in Bud's backyard. It is a fenced-in yard. Full disclosure, Chris and I are neighbors. Chris has many talents. He also practices in his backyard. Since there was one house between, I have been listening to Chris at least one or two nights a week for years. And you can hear my dogs every now and then. Which is great. So just the bones of it, as you can see, I brought that, just want to skip over there. You know, our initial thoughts for the first year are to have the music festival at Devitt, multiple stages at Devitt, and then we would do just a couple of smaller events post-session, Friday and Saturday. We don't want to go too late at night on either of these nights. In fact, Friday would probably be pretty small because it's going to be, after work, so it'd be, we're going to try to wrap everything up by 9 p.m. both days. Sunday we'd wrap up by 5. And then over the course of the next, couple of years, what we'd like to do is expand it to include all the venues that we would have in town that would host music. So, for example, when we were talking about this initially, we would hopefully get the trolley back in service and run people from High 9, let's say, all the way down to Rusty Rail and have music there during the day and music there during the day and music at Landing in Maine and Red House and any place else that want to have music. That's sort of modeled after like the Austin City Limits Festival or the Montauk Music Festival, which I've been to. And, just kind of get it to grow so that the whole town is kind of involved, and that there's activity throughout the town all day and activity around the town all weekend. I think for the first year, that's a little bit of a stretch based on our time limits, our budget questions about how it's all going to run. So we'd rather just kind of keep it confined to the one space for now, and then sort of grow it outward as we go along. We did discuss in the Board of Selectmen meeting that over the years, what we hope to do is to make this a self-sustaining thing. Obviously, the ARPA money doesn't last forever, and that by scaling this up in that way, we eventually may be able to charge admission. First year would be free. And then from there go on to, like, if you charge admission on year 2, the admission gets a little higher. Year 3, we start to produce money, and then we can run this on our own with sponsorships that we would get. Sponsorships we'll probably get this year as well, probably not as much, but the sponsorships would grow as the event grows. The vending would grow as the event grows, and then we would just see where we are and try to make sure that we don't burst out of debit field in the town, but I don't think that would happen. I think we can manage to keep it in a place where it's more of a boutique festival rather than some, giant, mega festival that, is gonna overrun the town and annoy the crap out of the residents. Thoughts, ideas, questions? After party is at Bud's house. After party is at Bud's house.
But even with this first year, we were
It's-
thinking like the after party, we can offer, see if Red House wants to host something.
High Nine, yeah.
A couple of venues, so we're still including Main Street, so people are spending money here, eating here, hopefully like shopping or strolling around during the bands, like maybe they like one, they don't like the next, so they go for a walk, they come back or something, So our idea is to help economic development, help, shopping local, get people into Deep River, see what we're all about. Maybe they, come back, maybe they buy here and all that and live here someday,
Where will you get the bands? They are your fellow bandmates in the region, or?
So I've already spoken to a lot of the bands that are more local,
Okay.
and I have booked talent before, so I know where to find people and what they cost and how to haggle them. I do the summer concert series. I've done it for 4 years here, or thereabouts, I don't even know. So I do have a pretty good finger on the pulse of what's available, what we want to get, what type of music would work, and make it so that it's fun for all the demographics in town, and that people would come from around the area and around the state to come and see those people.
So you pay the bands,
Now, we're gonna have to pay some of them, that's for sure.
as opposed to the other way around, that they
Yeah.
would pay for the publicity?
Yeah, well, I think the good thing about it is that if we get the right headliners, then the bands who are filling out the day will pay for a lot less. That's the goal. In other words, let's say, and look, I don't want to use real names because I don't want people to get their hopes up and then go tell their friends that this is who they're planning on getting to the festival. Let's say that Elvis Presley was headlining the festival, because we know he's not going to be there, okay? I could probably have 1,000 people lining up to play for free in front of Elvis Presley because they know they're going to get all that exposure. Now, that said, I could have, 5 bands from Connecticut come in and play ahead of Elvis Presley for very little money because they're going to be in front of, a couple thousand people, they're going to have, all that stuff. So, if it was free or if it was less money, it would still be enough to get people to come in and play. Just by comparison, the Montauk Music Festival does not pay anybody, but they put them up. And they'd have them play multiple times over the weekend and they'd feed them, and that's it, and everything else is exposure. So over time, when we have the multiple venues, that would be something we would do. It's when we would put them up, we would pay them a nominal fee and say, listen, you're going to play Saturday and Sunday, you're going to play at Red House on Saturday, and you're going to play at High Nine on Sunday, and someday you'll work your way to the main stage in front of Elvis Presley, and that'd be great for you. So that's the kind of modeling that we're looking at for that. It's just year one would not be as cut and dried as that. It would be much more, here's where you are in this one place. Make sense?
Is there a type of music that you would be targeting? I heard a big expo last night on, oh God, I can't do it, drilling, rap music or something like that. I think that was the word they used. I can't get it. Anyhow, is there a type of music that you would be bringing in? For instance, Eminem is Eminem going to be your headliner?
It's possible that there'll be an Eminem tribute band.
I actually think the man's brilliant.
It would be a coup for sure. No, I think we're looking for probably just mainstream, rock, pop, just just more stuff that people don't get to see here often. I think there's a million jam band festivals out there, so we want to steer a little bit clear of that. We'd be competing with too many of them to make it worth our while, for one, and those guys all like to get paid because they can bring people in. So it would just depend. What we had talked about initially, and again without using names, is that we'd have a younger type of headliner for Saturday and then an older type of headliner for Sunday, so that everybody gets a little bit of what they want. But it'd be music everybody can enjoy. We're going to curate a pretty nice group of bands that's going to be, best way I could put it is to be nothing that would be offensive to somebody if they walked in. So no hardcore or metal or rap or anything like that, just, all kind of middle of the road mainstream stuff that people would enjoy.
Would you go through your budget here, which you have put together with great thinking?
I wouldn't say that. I put it together with haste and...
I think you want to say yes, Chris.
So, in any case, yes, so we are hopefully allocating $25,000 from the ARPA money 6,000 of which would go to staging and production. That would be making sure that we have a stage, a crew to run that, sound, minimal lights because we're not going to be going too late. It is June, the longest days of the year we're going to be, so we don't need to have a huge light show for a half an hour worth of lights, but we need to have something there. 3,000 for advertising promotion. Again, that's a flexible one. 2,000 for support services, security, whatever. 2,000 for incentives and cost overruns, which I think we'll use, and then 12,000 for talent costs because we do want to have some heavy hitters to headline that festival. Now, this money can be shifted around a little bit, and what we would hope is that with sponsorship money, which you see down here, with beer vendors and just people saying, "Look, we want to put our name on your poster," saying, again, for a lack of a better word to use it, McDonald's presents, or something like that. McDonald's will not be presenting, by the way. So if we can get that money just goes towards making the talent pool a little easier to attain, which would mean that we could use that other stuff on extra security, extra advertising, whatever it may be. After year one, we'd have a better idea of where that money goes and where it needs to go so we know how to rearrange it and shuffle it. But given what we've done with some of the other things, it's a pretty decent look at what we'd have to do. It's just a matter of, you don't know what you know until you're there. So, we also have a little bit of money maybe in Park and Rec budget that we can spoon into this if we had to. But, I think it's a pretty good guideline for year one and what we would spend.
How much is in our concert line item now? Is it 6,000?
No,
No. that's
3,900.
too high. So right now we have about $4,000 in our line item, I believe, for Park and Rec that you guys approve every year for concerts, summer concerts. So that's 6 concerts over 6 weeks. So I think that kind of 12,000 is a reasonable amount if we're doing a 3-day festival where multiple bands. So, just to give you put it in perspective,
Yeah, and the most expensive band we hired this year for the concerts was $1,200 and the lease was $4,000. So if you're looking at, thinking about what a headliner would cost for any given day, you're probably looking at, for a decent one, anywhere between $200 and $2,500, which would mean $7,500 of the talent costs would go to a headliner, and then the rest would go to, a couple other bands that would be a little smaller and, whatever else. But if we had money left over, we could push it to another category if we had to.
And do you think bands would play just to play for nothing, just to be out there to play?
The right bands, yeah.
So they'd be attracted by the other guys playing?
Yes,
Be
100%.
part of it, like, can
Yeah.
I do that?
Even if we gave some of these bands a nominal fee, like $100, a lot of them don't get that at all when they play.
Just as a comment too, one of my kids lives in Mexico and plays like Los Angeles. And they have a music festival once a year, and it's for the whole town, it's free, you go, they've got American bands, Mexican bands, folk music, jazz, guitar, piano. It is fantastic, and people just come. You don't have to have a ticket, you just go there and you can stand around, people dance, they have vendors, they sell beer and tacos and, hot dogs and whatever, and it's a jam-packed scene. It's like the biggest thing to go to in town.
That's what we're hoping for.
So just as a comparison, it's a small town, this is a small town, it's
Yeah.
a great draw.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Board of Finance, any comments?
I have 3 questions. When is the carnival?
we have stopped having the carnival the last few years. It just, it didn't make money one year because we had we had a bad vendor and a lot of money at debit.
The other difficulty with the carnival, just if we're looking at just overall things, we were having a hard time with amusement companies, whether they were coming and we were having issues and complaints, whether they were coming and the rides were just not, people were complaining about the rides.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah. We're looking at this to sort of replace that, I guess.
You have vendors, beer, food, and artisans.
Yes.
How is that going to help the Main Street restaurants?
Well, I'm hoping that some of those vendors will be some of those people. So if I say to the guy again, just for comparison's sake, let's say I went to Sal at Landing and Maintenance to listen to Sal, I think you make great wings, which he does. And I think you should sell those. I think you should have a tent to sell your wings and whatever else you want to sell at this event, and you can come down and do it.
So these are not out of town vendors?
Well, if we need to get them, we need to get them, but I prefer to have them in town.
We wouldn't compete, like, we wouldn't have a pizza truck or anything like that. Like,
If Tom wanted to do it, yeah, exactly. I mean, it
we
just,
would try to have things other than what the town already sells. I know the Deep River Ice, like, they have a truck, and she's really excited to come out to some Park and Rec, they have a truck, so.
If you had to guess, and I know this is purely conjecture, on Friday night, how many debits, how many people would come?
I think if we have between 500 and 1,000 people, it's a success.
Okay.
I think it'd probably be closer to 500.
Where would you park them?
So parking, we were looking at a couple of different options besides the lawn where the church is, and then
Stonehouse.
in the stone house. And then the other possibility would be that we had talked about, and we don't know, we'd have to, again, because it's year one, we'd have to see what the interest would be. We would possibly talk about, we say busing people in, right, from,
Yeah,
Well,
like that
there are
red
different
trolley,
ways to do that, but yeah, you
something.
can bus people in.
yeah.
Say again?
We can definitely, we can bring, if this goes the way we hope it's going to go, we'll contract with the little red trolley to transport people up and down Main Street. We could also bring them up from the steam train. They could drop them at the landing. We could pick them up there and bring them up. And we could also pick them up at exit 4.
Because having played ball at Devon's for years, once you get 25 cars in there,
Oh, yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
all-
yeah. But I know for the carnival, when we were having it at its peak, how many cars were we able to park over at the stone house?
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can park a lot.
And I think we could, if we had access to the lot where the horseshoes are across from the church, that would probably add another, I don't know, 50, 60?
At least.
Easy.
At least.
Yeah.
But the farmer's market's scheduled to start, so we'd have to.
Yeah, we were talking
see if
about
we could
trying
work
to
that out.
finagle that on that weekend as well, yeah.
Got a couple of questions. This might have been covered, but with mask, I can't understand everything that everyone's saying.
I talk fast,
Yeah,
Italian.
I understand anything. Is there any money coming to the town for this?
As in coming to town, as in the town would make money off of it? No.
Okay. Do you think that $2,000 for what you call their, kind of these extracurricular things here, it would have included security? I question that you're gonna be able to pay for security with that kind of money. I think you're gonna need a lot more money than that.
You might be right. Which is why we have the flexibility to move items from one budget line item to another. I mean, look at it this way. You see $12,000 for talent costs, okay? I don't know that we'll need to use all 12,000. And as I said before, we do possibly have some money in the park and rec budget to throw into this, should we need to do that for things like we need more security. Advertising is at $3,000. I don't know that we're gonna need $3,000 for advertising. These are very good starting point outlines for a budget, but being that it's our first year, I don't have a point of comparison to tell you that this is what something would cost because it's nothing we've done. I know for the carnival, we didn't spend more than for the 2 cops we had, how much did we spend every year?
Well, they gave us a deal, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that 2,000 is kind of low if we're paying for the police for the whole weekend.
Right.
You're probably gonna need, I'm guessing, I don't know, I'm guessing you're gonna need state police rather than town police or combinations thereof.
Maybe,
It
yeah.
might be
It'll be a combination.
Yeah,
I agree with Bill, it might be a little more expensive, but you have to flesh that out.
yeah, we have the flexibility to move from A to B.
Yeah.
Last question for me is, COVID goes away, and then it comes back, and then it goes away, and then it comes back. What happens if it comes back at just the wrong time?
Then we're out 25 grand in ARPA money, unfortunately. Or we have an event that's,
Outdoor event.
yeah, it's outdoors, we just have to, change up what we do in terms of social distancing. One of the things that did actually exist in 2020 were these outdoor concerts where people spaced out, had a bubble and had everything else. I don't know that that's gonna be a thing, but I think if we didn't plan anything because of COVID, we wouldn't plan anything ever. So I think the goal should be to hope that, things are gonna be brighter in 2022 in the summer and that we're gonna be able to do things like this.
I hope you're right.
I hope so too. Yeah.
It's my job to worry.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. Everything we always do now is gonna be based on what if COVID, but I think that we have to look at it from a standpoint of, the good thing we could do is, in a lot of the contracts we would write up for anybody, whether it was the town or whatever it's in, and, COVID-19 comes up, there's a, forfeiture of everything or whatever, and, at least we can maybe retain some of that money back,
A similar question came up in the selectmen's meeting about the weather.
Mm.
You know, if we get rain, what happens if we get a couple days of rain?
Or worse.
So, you know, we talked about that, you know, so it's on the same line. If it gets canceled, then what happens?
Mhm.
And things like this rarely get canceled, it's just a matter of what the attendance would be if something like this happened where the weather was bad or whatever. Given that it's a free concert, there's no revenue stream missing for us. So if it happened to rain on Friday evening and that line was canceled, and then Saturday it rained, and then we finally were able to get the day in, you know, you'd still get a crowd out at some point, especially if you had people coming who were supposed to be pretty successful. I can remember a couple years ago, the Branford Festival was completely rained out on Friday night, and then it was completely rained out all day Saturday, and then finally Saturday at 5, the music started, and then went from Saturday to Sunday. It was just, you know, that's just how the weather was that weekend, so.
So you wouldn't be having any costs to anybody to do this? You would not be charging your vendors a table fee?
Oh, no, they would be. That's what some of the additional funding is, when it says $2,000 to $3,000, vendors from main stage area, food, beer, artisans. They'll absolutely have to do something. That's prime, you know, again, especially if they're local, I'd rather have them come in, pay a small fee of a couple $100 and be able to sell everything they want to, than have a food truck come in and have the same thing. I mean, they're gonna, you know, I'd rather see our local people do what they can to make this more local than not. The challenge always is, and we've had this with the you know, years ago, it was dinner and a concert at the concert series. And over the years, it's just become, hey, do you want to do this? And we get a lot of no's because they don't want to do it. So I don't know that they're all going to want to do this or they're not going to want to do this. We may end up with food trucks from out of town. I don't know.
I can speak to that a little bit. It's difficult if you're not set up as an off-premise restaurant person for sale, to use your example, for sale, to bring enough chicken wings down to Devon Field to
Yeah.
sell to 500 people.
Very difficult.
That's difficult. So I'm not certain. And this does bring me to echo Russ's concern of if there are vendors, if it's self-containable, if there's beer and food and bathrooms and things to do, why walk the mile down Main Street to have lunch? And it's just, these are thoughts. And one of the things I want to make sure that we're all talking about here, we're not authorizing this schedule or even this payment. We're authorizing the money for the Parks and Rec to put it together. We're not saying that we're only going to spend $6,000 on staging and production. We're saying we're going to spend the community is going to contribute $25,000 for you guys to figure out how to do this. You know, but we are entitled to express our concerns about the rest of Main Street, because this is money that's supposed to develop the economics of the community.
Right.
And that is a concern. If we put all of this at one end, how does it help the rest of the town? Especially if you're putting enough things there so you don't have to go anywhere.
Right.
You're asking for $25,000 from our budget, or your?
No.
ARPA money.
Bill, they're
That's
not.
what I'm trying to
No,
figure
they're
out.
not. That's key. Angus and the selectmen are recommending that special funds we receive, specials, there's a better word, the ARP monies we receive from the federal government, that $100,000 we spent over 4 years of those funds. I just want to piggyback for a conversation with the Board of Finance.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that I think of this as a municipally funded activity. My thoughts. Everyone else can participate. It is just a conversation starter. Angus is recommending that special funds from federal government be used as the seed money for this. He's
And
asking-
that's what that money is scheduled for from the government, or is that what we're scheduling it for?
scheduling, but Angus will explain in more detail. It fits into what is set forth as allowed.
Right. I didn't quite understand your question, but the thought of the Board of Selectmen, I think, and you guys correct me, but the thought is that we will seed this, we'll use this money to seed this event for 4 years. after those 4 years, if it's successful enough and it's self-sustainable, then the town's off the hook and only benefits from it. If it succeeds enough where it's still not self-sustainable, then we have another conversation when Park and Rec comes to us in the budget preparation and says, we don't need the 25, but we think we need another 12. And then we have to decide, do we want to continue funding it from the town? It's up to us and it's up to the town to decide that.
Also, just to circle back to something that Angus was talking about earlier, that we were talking about with the benefit of the town and, you know, how this works. You know, the initial thing we were trying to push for when we were planning this was to have the multiple venues all weekend. So Saturday and Sunday, we would have a main stage here, then we would have at the same time, and this is what, again, the Montauk Music Festival would look like, probably what this festival in Mexico looks like, what Boston City Limits looks like, where you can bounce from place to place to place and see all sorts of different music at all sorts of different places. The reason why we're trying to make this a little bit smaller in year one is because, one, it is year one. So I think finding out what it's going to be like to logistically pull it off at the main stage area in and of itself is going to be a lot of a challenge right there. The second challenge we have is time. If this was year two, we'd already be done with 90% of this. As it is right now, we're going to be, you know, not scrambling, but it'll be a sprint, not a marathon to get this done, because all these things are intertwined. And we can't even really act on it until we have a town meeting, which will further delay anything we can do. So one of the reasons why we're putting the brakes on going to all these places and saying, do you want to be a part of this, is because the last thing I want to do is walk around town promising all these places like Red House and Landing in Maine and, you know, High Nine, we're going to have this great music festival, it's going to be awesome, you guys are going to be a part of it. Town meeting comes, town says no, and then I got to go back to all these people and say, well, that's not going to happen. Because they will be putting their calendar together sooner than later for what they want to do in June, just like I'm putting my calendar and you're putting your calendar together. So as we try to get this going and get this off the ground, it's just going to take time to you know, nail all this stuff down. Having 7 other venues to manage at the same time on the first year would probably be too difficult for us to do, given the personnel that we have and the fact that it's, you know, a volunteer thing and not a, you know, job thing, if that makes sense. But I do plan, and I think Carol and I and Bud have really, you know, talked about this. We agree that year 2, 3, and beyond will be multi-venue throughout the town, and then it will grow and grow and grow throughout the town.
Shouldn't this money be asked for in the Park and Rec budget and not as a separate item?
No, it can't be.
Can't be.
This cannot be part of our town budget. This is ARPA money that was, you know, we've received, 695,000 now in a separate fund. It's not part of our budget. We will receive another 695 sometime in the next couple of years. It will not be part of our budget. We have to treat it. The only way we can spend it is the same way we spend our budget, but it is not part of our town budget. And it should.
Citizens will not be paying for this, is your ask right now.
The citizens, we can get into a long theoretical question about whether the citizens are paying for it, because the money came from somewhere. But the citizens of Deep River did not put together $1.6 million or $1.5 million. The country has provided us with $1.5 million to help recover from COVID through economic development, through social services, and through some capital expenditures.
I just don't want to add $100,000 to the budget. That's
We are not. This is not.
The request coming from Angus and the board is that we authorize this to go to a town meeting. What will you seek at the town meeting? 30 to commit the 100 or just the 25? What do you ask?
I would suggest the motion is for the 100 to fund this for the 4 years.
Yeah.
I want to point out that my interpretation of this does not mean if we spend 12,000 the first year, the next year there's 38,000. I think this is 25 per annum. At the end of that, we've only got 2 years to figure out how we're gonna spend this. So, in the year 3, if we call it quits, we've got $25,000 that we're gonna need to give back.
And you've done all your due diligence on how this money can be spent and where it can
We're,
be spent.
I think we'll be continuing to learn that, but the final ruling has been established and distributed. So we have figured out, we can in fact use it for something like this.
Great.
Yeah.
My question remains, if we do this with our limited funds, what aren't we doing? And you're still.
Well, those are the good questions, you know, I don't have finalized things yet, but we're looking, we're going to be back here to ask for a full-time social services person to supplement our social services office. Whether we share that person with Chester like we do now or not, but we do think that there should be, there's no question that there's a need right now for additional social services. That's what this money is for. We should be spending on that. We will probably be back for funds for some of our ambulance and fire department equipment.
The radios, yeah.
We will be back for some town equipment, like we need a generator at the town garage. And then we're getting suggestions continuously. But we do need to start to focus on those. I need to get, you know, I spent probably thus far a few days in total talking with social services and Tri-Town Youth Services as to what we can expect need to be, where we're going to house this person, and how much that salary is going to be. You know, so we can continue to come to the town. I hoped that we would do this all at once, but the time frame that Chris expressed for this is why we're here for this right now. It's a good question that you ask about are we funding it for 4 years or for 2 or for annually? The motion from the Board of Selectmen was for 4 years.
No, makes sense. I mean, you've got some momentum going.
Yeah. It's up to you guys to really move it to town meeting. And you know, but remember, keep in mind that we have got to decide how we're going to spend it, and we've got to document how we're going to spend it by the end of the second year.
All right, Board of Finance, you heard that selectmen are recommending that we move to town meeting a request to the town to spend $100,000, $25,000 per year for the potential to create a music festival.
Out of the ARPA funds.
The ARPA funds, that is correct. Not out of any, there will not be any Deep River tax dollars in that 100,000. And the future will, sir.
Well, one of the things we talked about in the meeting is, you know, this personnel, or person we're thinking about doing, that's gonna be probably an ongoing thing. That when the ARPA funds are up, then it might be requested to be put in the town budget to keep that person going. This is something that we talked, that maybe it'll get to the point where there's wristbands and people pay a little something to get in, and it will be self-sustaining, and they won't need money to keep it going in the, you know, when the ARPA funds run out, you know, so it's.
And I'm in absolute agreement, except I just want to point, that's too far in the future.
Oh, right.
And we don't know
Right.
what obligations the town might be asked of in 4 years.
That's right.
So I don't think we can promise any.
No.
We can have some ideas or some hopes, but that is not part of what we're being asked to do.
No, we're not obligated to spend any town money other than the request for the ARPA money, right? So, of the other, if I did the math right, there's another 1,295,000 left if we
Yes.
expend 100,000 on this. Of that, how much of that has been allocated for? I mean, you mentioned the social worker just.
None has been allocated
None's
yet.
been allocated.
I had hoped to have a town meeting focused on ARPA spending with 3 or 4 major expenditures,
Okay.
if not all of our expenditures, but,
Alright.
it's just, this is just time sensitive, so where if we don't do it now, we're gonna be planning for next June.
No, understood. Yeah. Do you envision there being, in the near term, do you envision there being other potential uses that would exceed the 1.295?
There is, I don't, because I don't wanna bring some of the town, we could use this money for sewer expansion.
Mhm.
We could use this money, all of it for capital expenditures if we wanted to. I don't want to, I don't think it's appropriate, what this money was designated for. But it is, some is, you know, and I think some public safety is a big part of it.
Right.
And we can use some of it for that. Well, could we spend $1 million for? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, gosh, look at
No,
all
I
this.
know, I know.
But I don't see our town
Right.
having that need.
Okay. And that the second 695 is guaranteed?
Yeah, well, as guaranteed as government.
Guaranteed
yeah.
but that's.
Yeah,
And if you don't use the money,
goes back.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
No, we're gonna use it.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't use
Yeah.
it,
You have to send it back.
Yeah.
so even if we did the 100,000, it only succeeded for the first year, and the rest of it, it's not gonna play for the other 3 years. Even if we only did it for that 1 year, look at what a tremendous bane that is to all these people in our town who have been locked in for COVID, and nobody can do anything, go anyplace, have any fun, be with other people. All of a sudden, we're doing a music, I think this is a grand idea. Do a music festival for everybody in town, it's free. You know, bring your kids, bring your lunch, bring your chair, come and sit, enjoy, get up and walk around, go someplace else.
You want people to go out and eat, though. Motion, anybody?
Can the money be reallocated if it, like, say after 2 years?
That I don't know, I can tell you that if after 2 years,
Yeah,
Chris has said this is not going to work,
right.
we can't make it we can't make this
No,
work.
we're
I don't
planning for
anticipate any of this, but
Planning for success.
after that second year, if we decide, if somehow or another this is not gonna continue, we need to make a decision very quickly how we're gonna spend that other 50,000.
Okay.
Because we can't, after year 2 ends, we can't start spending money.
No, that's fine.
All right, motion. Motion, Board of Finance, send it.
I'll make a motion that we bring to the town for a vote to see if they would approve $100,000 to be spent out of the ARPA available funds for a musical festival to be expended $25 per annum over 4 years.
Cool, all right. Do I have a second?
I second,
All right. All those,
no, you discussion.
okay, discussion, excellent. Additional discussion. All right, all those in favor of sending this to a town meeting, $100,000 to be paid out of ARPA, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Well done, okay. Thank you, and good luck to you, Chris. We'll be out the backyard will be a busy place and a noisy.
Your garage is a good backup too. It's a big garage.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
I see you covered the pool, not that that has anything to do with the meeting, but you reneged and covered the pool this
Yeah,
year.
we finally covered the pool. 2 dogs, I got a couple.
Oh, things they are changing. All right, everyone, we were making great progress here. I guess, I shall share with you, I will waive my coveted copy of this year's financial statement. This year being defined as June 30th, 2021. It is over. I sent you an electronic copy, and I had hoped that we would have physical copies. We do not. The auditors will be with us at our next meeting to discuss their findings. But I shall read to you, they summarized at the end of the current fiscal year, June 30, 2021, the town's governmental funds reported, at the end of the current fiscal year, unassigned fund balance for the general fund was, I'm going to round, $2.8 million. or 15.4% of the town's final budgetary expenditures, last year's budgetary expenditures. We have been encouraged by OPM and auditors that we should get to a budget surplus of about 15%. This puts us slightly on the upside of what has been recommended. Now, while it has been recommended by reliable sources, we have had conversations amongst ourselves that may be too aggressive of a number. And we have had conversations that maybe 12, 13 is the right number. So anyhow, in our budget workshops, we will deal with how we wish to address whether you think it is too large of a surplus or not. We will deal with that in our workshops. Is all I wish to leave it at the moment. So, but I would, and you can decide whether you think it is good news or bad news. But so we will get those copies to us once we get them, and the auditors will be here next month. An additional positive with this audit: last year's audit had some audit exceptions. They thought there was some issues in our financial controls. They were addressed with the help of the auditors, with the help of Angus, and so there was no negative findings in this report. So we will deal with that in our budget workshops. Okay. What else should I say? Tom is not with us. Is Tom online? Other than that, we have been sent his numbers. And without Tom's comments, I'm not totally sure how to comment on them. We had, let's see, I can get this.
You guys all got a copy of these, right?
They were emailed to us, so I'm going to say yes. I will read a number, but I'm comfortable with just a number. As of as of today, as of today, was it 22nd, I think, revenues, 16th, as of the 16th, Tom had, I think it was $9 million, I'm not getting it there, I'll get it.
$9,631,000.
There you go, as of today, it came out. What number are you grabbing a hold of, Russ? Which one you want?
This is the gross total at the bottom in bold.
Which I'm never quite sure what to do with, because that is funds that are used by others. For instance, we just said we were going to recommend spending $100,000 of that 657 you have there. The town funds, which is our main focus, $7.7 million. That seemed like a considerable amount of money. Most of that money came in January, if you remember. That is our final tax-paying month. So I would have asked, it just doesn't seem like that much should come in February. So there's other funds coming in, but it seems ample amount of funds, unless anyone wishes to.
That number also contains the ARPA fund, so.
No, it does not the 7.73. Your number,
Yes.
the 9.6 does. I was going to the 7.7 up on the top.
Okay.
Follow?
Yes, I do.
Good. Excellent. All right. So I have no additional comments unless someone would like to summarize in some fashion. Good. With that behind us, I'm going to ask Angus. My last conversation with Angus, he has no additional recommendations other than the Chris recommendation, the Board of the Park and Rec. Will you update us on things that we had sent to a potential meeting last month?
Yep. We need to have, and we've authorized, you and we have authorized the town meeting to agree to a contract for 20 years for solar panels to be installed up at the town garage. We're negotiating that contract right now. Again, that's time sensitive, so we're working as hard as we can. We've exchanged comments back and forth. I think we're very, very close to getting that finished to where we're going to get to a town meeting.
Is there difficulty in that conversation on how to share revenues or?
No, it's really not so much how to share revenues there, but the smidgen of it is. Mostly what it's talking about is who's responsible for what, who's going to pay for what, when are payments going to come, what's the schedule going to be. You know, the way this was originally sold to us, you know, I expected that construction would start by September. It's a much longer process before the money starts coming in. So we're tying up the property for more than just the 20 years of the contract. I'm asking them for some guarantees and some funds for those 3 years or however many years before they actually install the solar panels. Why should we tie that property up for 3 years before they've even got all their approvals? So,
and is the property out as we drive to the transfer station? Is that swath of property right out in front?
it's the field, you know the driveway that goes up to the town garage?
Yes.
The field to the left of that, if you are driving up to the
It's
town
raised.
garage.
It's raised a little to the left.
Oh, it is not that big swath as you're driving on Route 80. It is up towards the back?
No, it is, you see it from Route 80,
Okay.
but, you know, the town garage, there's a small section of lawn, driveway, larger elevated section of lawn.
Oh,
The
okay.
larger elevated section is where that's going to go.
Is there competing uses? Is that, was your concern?
There are not competing uses right now, although there are some suggested uses other than this. This generates a good amount of money for us over 20 years' time. And if we can negotiate it properly, it will work out well for us. But if we can't negotiate it properly, we'll put it to other use.
That's where the pickleball courts are going.
That's where the pickle, believe me, that's one of the suggestions. Right
And
next-
you did use the phrase, who pays for what? I was under the impression the town is not incurring any cost.
That's correct.
Other than giving up its land. That is
That's
correct.
correct. The contract was not, the contract that was authored to us was not clear on that. So we are making sure that it is.
Oh.
That's all. We're just buttoning it up, that's all. You know, it was pretty boilerplate. This is the contract they send out to every single community, and not just community, every single private property owner who wants to entertain this. It did not fit for us. So we made it fit, or we got it very close to fitting. They have not quite agreed to a couple of things, and we're negotiating that now. I expect we're gonna meet, if not tomorrow, then Thursday or Friday.
Excellent. Okay.
The second thing was a little bit more, top of my head, I'm not remembering. I should have made a
Body
note.
cameras?
Pardon?
Body cameras?
Body cameras for the police department, right. That is, again, we're negotiating the cost of that. We're changing things around. The server for that was very expensive. Some of the costs that the original proposal was not 100% accurate. So we're going to keep it under the 65,000. We're just trying to get to that. And I expect all of this to be done within a week, 10 days, and the town meeting to be a week, 10 days after that.
So your town meeting would be the 3 items we approved, the 2 you just chatted, and our pension, increase in pension funds by 45,000.
Yes.
Would you also take ARC to that same town meeting, or are these going to be different?
I would like not to. I would like to have kept ARP all by itself, but time constraints are such that I think we should just do them all, do it all at once. We need, all of these things are time sensitive. We just need to get set to a point where we can bring them to a meeting. If one looks like it's gonna hold things up, then we'll move forward with the others. But right now, all of those balls are up in the air, so as soon as they start to land, and they should be all landing close enough to the same time that we can get it all done.
They are all somewhat time sensitive.
Yes, yeah.
The 45 for the pension is probably the most unsensitive.
That's the most latitude on that one.
Cool, all right. Let's, while we are.
There was one other thing.
Oh, was there? I'm sorry.
Not to do with town meetings, but one other thought that has to do with you all, which is the budget workshops.
Oh, there you go.
And I think I would like to recommend that we postponed the initial meeting, which was set for March 1st. A lot of the recommendations from departments came in late. I'm not quite ready for it yet. I expect that I will be. I want to spend some time with Bud and with Dwayne and Jim with the finished budget before we start workshopping it. So I'd like to ask to cancel that meeting and just meet on the following Tuesday.
Anyone have any problems with that?
No.
Good. Trish, what do we have to do to cancel a meeting? Do we have to send notice to the town clerk?
Yeah, I'll send a notice.
Excellent, thank you. All right, anyone have any questions for Angus on any subject? If not, let's turn to the financials. And unless anyone has a decision, let's do expenditures first.
I can direct you to the one item or the two items that are of concern for me, not enough concern to act on anything right now, but just to point out to you that we are burning through our, if you go to the highway department, go to the second item in that, equipment maintenance, you will see we are already spent 70,000 or 70% of that. And we have two pieces of equipment that are out of commission right now that are being worked on now. I expect that to be at least another 10, probably another 15, somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000. So historically, we get pretty close to this, although the last couple of years we haven't. It's just early right now in the year, although it's not as early as I thought. I've learned over the past couple of days that time is going faster than I thought it was. So the year is getting close, but that budget number is lower than I would like it to be at this point.
What about the sand and salt? We okay on that?
Sand and salt, no, we're making another order that is coming. But we've been overexpended on that quite a bit in past years. And that's why we have contingency in highway storms and stuff like that.
Had an awful lot of ice this year.
Yeah, no, that's why.
Coming this weekend.
My hope is, it's way early to expect this is gonna be real, but I'm hopeful that this is our last load of salt we're gonna need, because every time we fill up, it's good for 2 good storms. So I'm hopeful that this will be the last delivery that we need. It is getting late in the year, and, the sun's getting stronger, all that kind of thing.
And just in passing, look at salaries, we're down to, what's this, the 8 months, so we're what, we should have about 33% left. And
Yeah.
we're right where we should be, except I assume you're going to have overtime this.
Well, I'm sure we'll have some this weekend.
Every storm's been on a weekend. So
every single storm.
And I take you back from last couple of years, we have been fortunate. In that town crew, we had quite a bit of surplus in, if that's the right word. And we never changed it logically, because weather can take that away from us, and it seems like it is. So, all right, we have contingency, but it's getting, it's low. I guess I'm just awful. Remember the recommendation that we have offered before. If we believe that there is adequate funds with either in a line item or within our budget to cover over any line item that goes over, we will not take action to move money out of our unassigned surplus into this budget. And we can go through the budget, but I have no suggestion to you that we are not well within our budget in total. And with the exception of the highway department, I think we're okay just about every place else, unless anyone wishes to bring anything up.
Yeah, I echo your sentiment. I think we are well within our budget. We just,
that group seems to get hit harder. We are in the 8th month, so we should have spent about 6.7% of our budgets, and I think if you look at bottom line in each of our categories or line items, I think we're fine. Few that jump out at us. Town hall operations seems to be a little tight. Fuel, where are you on oil? Boy, the cost of oil is certainly going up, oil and gas, so but we're okay there. Telephone seemed to be a draw upon us. 39% still seems to be enough money there.
No, you're right about the fuel and gas, but those are commodities that have gone up considerably. And we had it was a good cold winter it's probably gonna work out to be average, but January was certainly very cold.
An excellent point, and I have no idea what to do with the following statement. Whatever happened to cold winter? It's supposed to be 60 degrees tomorrow. And it's so
I
Saturday.
was thinking quite a bit about that, and I think we're gonna see, in the end, it's gonna average out to be an average winter with some big extremes.
It must have been rather small at the shelf, because I can remember snow almost as big as I was, but now you have to have two wardrobes in today's world.
Yeah.
Summer wardrobe and winter wardrobe. All right, I have nothing, there's a couple other. The one I want you to make, let's talk about the police once again. Police is going over their vehicle maintenance and supplies, generally because of what? Because we've got
cars.
new constables, so, yeah, cars.
The cars is definitely a problem. And that will be something that we'll talk about in the workshop.
Good.
Tom really thinks we ought to start, and I don't disagree with the theory of what Tom wants to do. We don't budget this way yet, but he would like us to set aside monies every year so that after 3 years, we've got enough money to buy a car. And just to continue that program as opposed to waiting until we need a car and then budgeting all the money for that car.
We'll chat about that in a minute.
That's it. We're gonna have a long conversation.
How about, let's talk about building inspector. Building inspector seems to be right on budget. And we've had conversation about building inspectors in prior years. I assume with the new houses, new construction, and that type of thing, he is under pressure.
He's under quite a bit of pressure, and that's a question that prior to, probably a couple of 3 years ago, when we really put some pressure on him to stay in his budget, the general consensus was, it's okay if he goes over because the work that he's doing is generating a lot of income. I don't disagree with that. So I expect we will see that to go over just because we're coming into the building season. So it's going to get tough with them.
And he does seem like his work seems to be a revenue generator, so I agree with that. Police services were good, fire department's fine. Highway was our main construction there. Down in waste removal, we're under a lot of, we seem to be getting low. First one I want to talk about is, we talk about every month, the assistant operator is drawing on his funds, but we acknowledge that we did not budget that correctly, so it should be drawing on his fund. That line could go over also. All right. The one I want to say is recycling fees. We're down to about 26% left. That will probably go over, I assume.
I can't see how it's not going to.
Okay. But again, I offer that if you look at that line item, waste removal, we're at 46%. I assume we will have adequate, I keep using the word surplus, in that line item to cover those line items, is my thoughts.
I bet you it's gonna be real close. There's a few things coming up, household hazardous waste and things.
Yeah.
Chipping, it'll be spent.
Wood chipping, yeah, we've got one in the spring.
Oh, you have another one in the
Yeah.
spring, huh?
Yeah. But that will be nowhere near that total.
Oh, well, okay, all right. I think we're okay on that line. Park and Rec, always a bit of a mystery. They seem to be adequately funded. I'd like to go on record that the Board of Park and Rec said, here's what we're going to do. I'm now being told that they've got excess funds that may be diverted in another direction. A little uncomfortable with that conversation.
No, I don't. I think that was a misstatement.
All right. Well done. All right.
And I kicked him really hard under the table.
Anyhow, we'll leave it at that. All right, elementary maintenance and equipment, we say every month will be, what are we saying every month? That 40,000, which is unspent at the moment, you plan on spending in
we've
June?
got a big project coming up where there was some asbestos removal and library carpet, the library floor, that will spend every bit of that and some.
In this budget year, or you think you're gonna have to carry it
No,
over?
we're going to have to carry that over, so it's going to be, we'll start the project with this, we'll spend every bit of this 40, and we'll budget next year's budget to accommodate the rest of that.
All right, which brings us down to general government capital. I'm gonna have you explain again, the LOSIP grant, which is revenue from the state,
Yep.
which we have not yet received, you have spent most of it. And everyone knows that you have spent it, you have used town funds in anticipation of receiving that,
Yes, that's right.
as long as we can all acknowledge that. Your elementary school roof, where we had a grant from the state, you said it was, the roof cost was 164.5, you have spent 140 of it, 24 remains unspent. I assume that will be spent, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Have we received the money from the state, or are we going to be reimbursed for that?
Reimbursed, no, we have not gotten that.
Okay. Speaking of not reimbursed, oh, but that's good. Revenue. I'm going to go to revenues. Okay. I have nothing to add other than we budgeted $19.4 million expenditures. To date, we have spent $11.8 million. We have a 7.6 to go. I have no reason to think there's any pressures on those numbers or anything we should be concerned about, other than the ones we just made reference to.
Just for conversation, if you have time, and it would be interesting to look at our budgeted expenditures versus the amount of money in our general funds. It says about 7.6 left to spend,
Yes.
and our general fund total is 7.73.
No, that's an excellent.
But that doesn't make a lot of sense. Because where's our surplus?
We still gotta get the second round of,
No, that's right. We've got the education
The
money
education
coming.
cost grant.
And that's the big one.
That's
What's coming in that is
$600,000.
50%, so that's half a million right there.
yeah.
It's an excellent, other than I always get confused when I look at those numbers. We've just been told by our auditors that we have surplus of $2.7 million.
That's why I'm raising the question.
That's the question I always sort of ask, comment, but never get a good, it's caught up in, you're using, we didn't get all of our road funds, we spent them, loads of, we spent them. We've got some working capital drawing on some of that surplus.
Yep, and that is true. There is still, as Dwayne pointed out, we're still waiting for 50% of our educational cost sharing, ECS money. We're still waiting on $100,000 in general grants from the state. And another, I think we're waiting for more of our road funds. So there's a lot of money that we haven't gotten yet that's going to come. But I don't know that it adds up to the amount that he's talking about.
I'll tell you what.
It just caught my attention. The numbers were so close. It piqued my interest.
And I catch that too, I just don't know whether I take comfort or close.
I don't either.
No, I mean,
The question was asked comment, I
The
don't.
school grant's 827,000.
Yeah.
That's a big chunk right there.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Yeah,
so
so
let
there's a
us take a
There's $1 million
brief
off the top of my head.
look at revenues. Let's take a look at the first one. We assume property tax revenues of 15 million, I'm gonna round, 15.5. We have collected 15.1, so we're doing very well on property tax current. Still can't figure out why we don't have an idea how much credit we gave to the elderly and fire department in July, but nevertheless. Property tax in arrears, those who haven't paid, there is a pestering that takes place. We assume we get 150. So far, we got 80, 72, 73. Still a large number there. But I know that, I just happen to know that they sent out notices in the last 2 days. So, motor vehicles, look how $100,000 of motor, these are people who bought a car after the grand list, okay? We assumed 100 and we've received $131,000. So I guess I'm just going to leave this conversation saying revenues seem to be coming in. Okay, fine. So if you drop your eyes all the way down to conveyance tax, we budgeted $40,000 and to date we have received a little over 54. These are new houses being sold in the town, so we have new folk coming to town and spending tax money. So I shall point out, and will say nothing more than I pointed out, we made an assumption in this budget that we would draw on our capital funds for the capital in our budget of approximately $93,000. We have not spent any of that, and it's possible we may not have to. Infrastructure grant, that's LoSiP. That is the, you see we have 120. Again, we have spent it. We'll just take the other side. We have yet to receive those dollars. So, and here's the conversation I started with myself a moment ago. The budget assumes we're going to get $169,000 from the regional school that they did not use 2 years ago. We have not yet received it. So I don't know what to do with that other than we should ask where it is.
It's in the mail.
It's in the mail. Well, remember,
But they want their money.
in the paper, they said we're going to get approximately, what, 420 or something in the, and we will assume in the next year. I guess I'm just curious what the timing of the receipt.
You lied.
It always comes, it's always been very,
As good an explanation as any.
that always comes very, very late in the year.
What do they do with it?
Maybe they would sponsor a concert.
They don't have concerts. Very true. I think that's about it.
John Winthrop Fest.
I shall point out to you that the police, which I did not point out to you, we have paid out about $75,000 to our constables, maybe even our trooper, for private duty work. We have collected 95 of the 75 we paid out.
We always get that back.
So we made the assumption that we would collect more and reflected it in this budget. It seems to be working for us. So I have nothing more to add. I think things are going well. It's difficult to look into the future, but things seem to be going pretty well, both expenditures and revenue side.
We can keep Deep River open for another couple
We
of
can
months.
keep Deep River open. All right, and I offer the following as a form of conversation. Angus and I received a memo from the assessor. And I'm going to suggest it is good news. The assessor sent Angus and I a memo dated January 20th, doesn't matter, that the grand list, taxable grand list, that we will use in the pending budget has increased by 3.04%, which is over $16 million.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with Robin about that today, and I was not able to get the results of what I requested yet. So I wasn't planning on speaking about it tonight, but there's very real possibility that is an artificial increase in the grand list based on the cost or the valuation of cars and used cars in particular.
There has to be, just to catch
And
up with
so
the
we have we have the ability, and I don't know all the answers yet, we have the ability to do two mill rates, one for cars and one for the other real property. And I haven't finished formulating this yet, but considering how we can address an artificial increase in our grand list, that probably after a couple of years when prices settle down again and there's a glut of used cars, that we'll see that portion drop. And I'm trying to work out, and we can have this conversation, how we can address that so that when that glut comes, the grand list is not, I'd rather see our grand list grow like this than like this and this and this.
So is that there is, I apologize, I spoke so heavily, but there's an increase of $11.9 million in our motor vehicle grant. And that's just,
Yeah, and I don't
there's only
know that
4,000
that's,
people here.
I don't think it's real. I think people are buying cars, there's no question about it. Whether it's because their car was stolen or whether it's because they just want a new car. People are buying cars.
Good quality used cars are a lot more money.
And
than just
everything's costing way more right
Yeah.
now, because there's just a lack of inventory. So I think that number is artificial. I think that number will drop considerably once the inventory goes up, when people can start buying new cars.
Are all cars in town being assessed at a higher value?
No.
Or just incremental new?
No, no, all cars are being assessed at whatever their assessment rates are. If you go online and go to buy a car, I just went through trying to buy a car for 3 months, and the prices were just, I'm cheap as can be, so I didn't want to pay that for that car. I just looked at that car 2 years ago and it was worth nothing. Now it's worth this? No way. So I lost out on a lot of cars. And I paid too much for the car I bought, as far as I'm concerned. But, that's what's happening, that's the market, that's where it is. And as a result, the grand list is being valued.
So anyhow, I offered it as information, good
Yeah.
information, but it needs to be put.
It's a conversation we're gonna have to have during the workshops to figure out how we're gonna address. I will suggest to you how I think we can address it so that it does not become something that comes back and bites us in a couple of years.
Good point. All right. I mean, the magnitude of that increase is virtually a mill, so yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Any additional information, conversations folks would like to have?
Can I ask a quick question on the status of the grant for the other fire truck?
It's submitted.
Submitted.
Yeah. It's submitted on time. Actually, it's submitted 24 hours early, if we get any credit for that, I don't know, but,
Well done.
yeah.
Brownie points.
The fire, yeah. We'll see. I mean, we're really gonna try to grant our way through a lot of the expenditures that we have coming up.
Yep, good.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We'll move it up first.
Second.
Second. Any conversations? Have some conversations. All in favor of adjourning? Say aye.
Aye.
Next time we will join together is Tuesday, March 8th.
Thank you.